Welcome to the large and unnecessary first player token podcast. Still to delivery, as expected. This is a video game and board game, general gaming podcast featuring myself, Euan, and my co-host here.
My name's Chris.
Colleague. Associate.
Brother.
You know my brother.
Yep, so as Euan says, this is about general gaming. We might add some other stuff later, depending on how the feeling takes us. We may even make some poor attempts at comedy at some point. Euan's got some probably terrible ideas for sketches, which I'll just go along with unwillingly.
You make a good straight man, Chris.
Yep. This is episode 0, so this is basically like a pilot, but it's kind of a test run, and we will probably release this, and we can look back on it in years to come and laugh at ourselves at how terrible we've become compared to this.
After getting over everybody else laughing at us.
I don't care about that. So we're gonna talk about sort of video games first, and first up, I recently acquired a PS4, and I just finished playing Bloodborne, which is a bloody difficult game, Euan, but amazing at the same time. It's really, really good. I'll tell you exactly what I know about the story of Bloodborne.
Okay, well, it's not too much as a kind of... This is one I've not played myself. I played a little bit at the start of it. I love what I saw.
You're in luck, Euan, because here's the story of Bloodborne as I know it.
Right.
I don't know anything about it. I don't know what's happening in Bloodborne, but
that gap was the story.
That was a comedy gap there, people.
I see.
So Bloodborne, I mean, it's you have seen a little bit of it, though.
I've got a feel for what it was like. It was definitely a world I wanted to jump back into, but I think it's one that I would like to play myself and immerse myself in.
But you have played some of the other Souls games. Bloodborne's part of the Souls series of games.
Reasonable amount of Demon Souls and a bit of both the Dark Souls games.
Yeah, so I never played either of the Dark Souls games. I played the Demon Souls games, but I never finished it. And I think I got reasonably far in it. Probably not as far as I think I did, but I got the general gist of it and how difficult it was. And I remember when Demon Souls first came out, people were talking about how difficult a game it was, and I thought it was brilliant, you know. Yeah. But for some reason, I never finished it. Well, it's probably because I got distracted by other games, but as always happens with me, I just have a bad tendency not to finish games, so I'm quite surprised I actually did finish Bloodborne, but...
Calling yourself a completist.
I call myself a completist
a long list
fail at it horribly.
Of unfinished games.
Yeah. I don't think that makes me a completist.
No.
I think it just means... Well, like I said to you earlier, I have sort of nervous breakdowns thinking about all these games that I haven't finished.
Yeah. You'll have, like, angry nerds writing in... Chris hasn't completed Fallout New Vegas.
It's true, I haven't.
I just plucked that one out of the air as well.
But you could probably pick any game and I'll be like, I've played it, never finished it.
But he's not qualified to talk about that dog.
I probably shouldn't be on this podcast, actually. Really not qualified.
No, should be.
Okay, well, Bloodborne, I mean, I don't know how you describe Bloodborne. It's kind of like a sort of Victorian-esque, weird sort of fantasy type thing. It's almost sort of like Lovecraftian almost in a way.
Well, one of the cool things that I heard about was the creator actually visited Edinburgh.
And, did he?
Apparently.
Edinburgh, that's where we're from.
Yeah, that probably, I wouldn't have just mentioned Edinburgh. we actually live in Belgium. And we're big fans of old Riki.
The Edinburghians.
Of the Edinburghians. And the Edinburgh...
Edinburghians.
The Edinburghians, yeah. The Edinburgh McDougalls. You can kind of... from the little bit I saw, you kind of get that. It's got that sort of the old town vibe, around the sort of Royal Mile.
Definitely.
Town.
I never really thought about that, actually, but you're right.
Yeah. So apparently that was a big inspiration on the game.
Alright, cool.
Victorian Edinburgh kind of has that feel to it.
So this is just some Japanese guys wandering about in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
All right.
Like,
you never see that, do you?
No, that never happens. No.
Yeah, so it's a really weird game. I mean, you play this hunter who is going about hunting beasts and some really weird story going on about some blood transfusion that you've got.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what is going on, really. And there's sort of cutscenes and stuff, but they don't really explain very much.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's supposed to be left to your own imagination, but...
I think there is quite a large backstory to it. And I think it's probably the same with the other Souls games. Well, obviously this one's not called Bloodborne Souls.
Bloodborne Souls. It is still a Souls game.
Yeah. I'm going to start referring to it as Bloodborne Souls.
God.
Specifically to certain people.
I know who you're talking about.
Certain people who don't own PS4s. I've completely lost track of the point I was attempting to make.
I didn't realise you were making a point.
Yeah. I was.
Come on.
Yeah.
Spit it out, Euan. Come on.
Well, the opening sort of sequence where you're being, I don't know, brought back to life. It's all kind of there does seem to be this sort of storyline behind it, and I think if you want to sort of delve into that, you can. But it's not thrust in your face like you would get in a lot of games.
Yeah.
There's not really much exposition. I mean, I don't know if there's like stuff, the usual sort of thing you get in games like journal entries and things like that. I think there were
kind of pieces of paper lying about the place with sort of weird things written on them about the cosmos and stuff. But
well, there's a special edition I've seen that you can get. It comes with several books.
Okay.
Costs £100 odd. And it's as an old sort of Victorian backpack style with like a leather strap that just sort of crosses over.
Oh yeah, I think I did see that actually. And then
There's
like
thought,
I'm not paying that much for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool idea, but I'm not
made of money.
No.
Or own a PS4 for that matter.
PS4 at this point. I'm just looking over at my old knackered Xbox in the corner there.
Is that
knackered? There's a PS2 on top of that as well. Didn't realise.
Whose is that? Is that even yours?
I think my brother bought that to replace one that me and him bought together, and then he had in his flat for a long time. It eventually just sort of bricked, and they tried to. Him and his flatmate attempted to sort of. I think they thought they were going to fix it in some way. I don't know. They took the top off it. They were fiddling around with it, not realising it was still plugged in, and just about electrocuted themselves. So I think they just gave up on that and decided to buy a new PS.
The best attempt I ever saw at fixing a PlayStation was using a katana.
Was this
this is my jiu-jitsu sensei's flat, who had all these katanas lying about and didn't have a screwdriver. So we'll try to unscrew it with these katanas. It didn't go down very well. Don't think it worked. So Bloodborne, it's if you're not familiar with these Souls games, they're like I say, really difficult, but you're just kind of wandering about with some sort of melee weapon usually. The other Souls games before Bloodborne, there were usually a lot of sort of heavy armour and shields and stuff involved that you used to block, but Bloodborne doesn't have that. Bloodborne doesn't have the shields and stuff, and the armour isn't particularly like, you're not walking about in big shining plate mail or anything. It's like Victorian clothing pretty much. And different sort of types of that. But the sort of shield system in that is that you get a pistol or some sort of gun anyway. You get a blunderbuss. You can pick a gun. I think there's even like flamethrowers and stuff in it, although I didn't try them out. But the blocking system in that is basically you have to time your blocks really quickly by using your pistol to shoot. Just as somebody's attacking you, to stun them, and then you can like basically beat the crap out of them when they're stunned. But it's like it's a really difficult game. But I would recommend it. Anybody that's into gaming could play it and should try and complete it. I think because it's an adventure. It's and it's really good.
Definitely want to sort of immerse myself.
Yeah, I think it's about time that you started playing it and stopped hiding from it.
I know. I need to. Well, first, as mentioned, I had to buy a PS4.
Yeah,
that's the roadblock currently facing me.
It's quite a big roadblock if you want to play Bloodborne.
Yeah, it's. I could just buy Bloodborne and look at the box and imagine what it would be like.
You could do that.
Yeah, I could take it with me on the tour of Mary King's Close.
and just stare at that while people are talking at you about various
just
like
swing a
Victorian plague stories and stuff.
Swing a huge sort of giant barber's razor sort of thing around my head. So yeah, Bloodborne, that was a good one. We're not going to come up with a rating system for this. We're just giving our general thoughts.
I'm not a big fan of the whole rating system thing. This out of 10, it's like, because it's not really that simple, is it? It's like you might get a game that's somebody would rate a 10 out of 10, but that's probably because they like that kind of game. Okay. So I mean, I'm not going to tell you.
We can do facetious ones, and I'm going to give 6 out of 10 dead rats for
6 out of 10
for a game I've not actually played.
Well,
to any great extent.
I'll give it 8 out of 10 alive rats.
All right.
I think alive rats are worth more. But again, that depends on your point of view.
Well, yeah, you like the sport.
I do like the sport, yeah.
The thrill of the hunt.
Exactly. Right.
Onwards.
Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Plus and specifically Rocket League.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of games we could talk about from PlayStation Plus, but this one in particular.
Yeah, so PlayStation Plus, you're probably familiar with it. It's an annual subscription thing. It's about 40 quid or something like that. Yeah. And then you get a whole load of free games. And one of the ones that's come up on the PS4 is Rocket League. Tell me about Rocket League, Euan. You love this shit.
I love it. I think anyone who would play Rocket League would be instantly hooked. I mean, as we've seen with our teammates on it, you don't necessarily have to enjoy football or indeed life to enjoy this game. You're a remote control car. I
don't know if it's a remote control car. It's just a car. Yeah. Could be a sentient car for all you know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's very difficult to tell from the game. I mean, there's a certain amount of flailing about that you wouldn't expect from from an entity that had control over its own body. It's essentially a little model car things that you're controlling on a sort of five-a-side style football pitch setup, and it is very much like five-a-side football.
It is, yeah. It's a complete
scooting from one end to the other.
Yeah, complete chaos.
Each other.
That's right. People taking it far too seriously for what it is.
Absolutely. And the other quirk of this is being able to drive up the walls.
That's right.
There's somehow...
Well, I've done that in a five-a-side pitch.
You drive people up the wall, including the referee.
What referee?
If there ever is one.
I played Preston Pans rules, man. No referee.
Yeah. Preston Pans is, of course,
my hometown.
Right, yeah.
It's a colourful place.
Yeah, it's got a totem pole.
It does have a totem pole.
It's a quite colourful totem pole.
I think it's the only place, I don't know if it's Scotland, or possibly the whole of the UK, that has an authentic totem pole made by totem pole people.
Is it
also known as Native Americans.
Oh, right, yeah, I wasn't aware of the history of it. I don't know whether any totem pole people...
Oh, yeah, it was quite recent, though. It was like the last 10, 15 years. Right. Some guy came across him and here's a totem pole.
Oh, fair enough.
Stick that up in your town.
I wonder how he got it over.
I think he might have made it here.
Oh, alright.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Rocket League. So... if you're listening to this podcast, you might want to get used to this. So Rocket League, we've managed to go seamlessly from Rocket League to totem poles, but let's get back to Rocket League. What actually happens in Rocket League?
Well, you attempt to score goals against... So far, we've been playing against computer opponents. It is online.
There's an online function. You can play online, yeah.
And yeah, it's just endless fun. It's extremely difficult.
It is, because there's 3 difficulty settings, and there's the Rookie, Pro, and All-Star. And the Rookie one, while you're getting used to playing the game, is challenging enough. But once you get used to playing the game, once you realise how you can actually smash this ball around, jumping up in the air and pressing X to flip your car over, smash into the ball and stuff like that, and send it flying. Once you get used to that, the Rookie difficulty is just far too easy. Yeah. And then you move up to Pro, and that's a big step up. And we haven't even tried All-Star yet. We're struggling with Pro.
Yeah, we've played a few leagues.
Just mini leagues, so 9 week long.
the league system's based on a kind of top.
It's kind of American
team.
style top 6 or top 4 going to the playoffs. You can change the settings, but so you have to try and finish in the top sort of teams in the league to get into this playoff, and then try and win the league. But yeah, we're just struggling to finish in the top 6. Yeah, out of 10 teams, so we're always bottom 4. But it's a pretty difficult game. But at the same time, you just keep playing it. Yeah, it's so addictive.
Losing doesn't. I mean, it's it's nice when anything goes well for you. Really, at this point, I mean, every goal you score is a massive triumph. It is, and it looks great. When you pull it off.
You get that good sort of feeling when you've pulled off. You've flew in from the other side of the pitch. You've seen this ball just bouncing around up the other end, and you just fly in using your booster and smash it into the back of the net, and you do feel quite smug.
Oh, absolutely. There was a lot of fist pumping going on from my end of the
fist pumping.
Well, I say a lot. There weren't that many goals from me. Yeah, a lot of assists.
But when you scored, you pumped that fist.
Oh, I certainly pumped my fist. There was one time I pumped my fist before I scored the goal, and then it never went in.
Well, so that's Rocket League, folks. Check that out. It's really, really good. If you like your just bits of chaos and football and just generally driving about in cars, if those 3 things interest you, you'll love Rocket League.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, don't overthink it.
No reason to overthink it.
Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about the XCOM trailer, Euan. I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
you told me something about it earlier on. So.
No, I just happened to notice it coming up online as you do. I think it was trailer for Me 3, so it's not. There's no release date or anything so far attached to it that I noticed. But the basic premise seems to involve you being a guerrilla force on a sort of alien-occupied Earth. Mm-hmm. Lots of shots of your squad. No actual gameplay footage, but sort of video of your sort of squad going around a dystopian occupied city with these snake-headed guards.
Snake-headed guards?
Yeah, there was just your sort of soldiers in body armour with snake heads, yeah, coming off the top.
Obviously.
Yeah. They're your new foe. The aliens have evolved in better ways and become snake men. And it seems like, I don't know...
It's a natural evolution.
Yeah.
What's the best thing we can think of? Yeah. Snakes.
Well, they were defeated in the first game, so obviously...
Snakes was the obvious choice.
They knew where to go. The base in this one, I think at the end it showed you it taking off. It was a large sort of carrier thing, so I think it might be like a mobile base, giving you probably a whole different setup for upgrading in between battles.
So it's almost like the aliens and the humans have switched places then. So like the aliens are occupying the Earth and now the humans are trying to take it over.
Yeah. So they've come up with something to sort of keep it fresh anyway.
Or at least that's what it seems like.
The roles.
I mean, you could have got this all wrong.
I could have completely. I'm speculating here. I used my detective skills.
Okay, we'll find out how good they are.
I think pretty much most of it revolved around the snake men. As I think if you work backwards from
snake men
guarding a door or a lamp or something like that, Well, they probably weren't guarding the lamp; they were just standing in front of it.
Well, you don't know that, man.
Yeah,
that lamp could have big repercussions.
Well, yeah. Well, the lamp could just be another alien you've got to fight.
That's very true.
That's probably more likely.
Okay, so that's XCOM 2. Is it called XCOM 2?
Yeah, I think it's actually just called XCOM 2.
There
was no subtitle given at that time, so yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Also, actually, just today, saw the Fallout 4.
Oh yeah,
gameplay.
I saw that.
That looks
really absolutely brilliant.
The sort of like the sort of interactions and that they looked sort of interesting. With the robot, I don't know, and also this sort of mechanised battle suit thing.
Oh yeah, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that I remember about that they've got a lot of sort of, they've added in, I don't know, like it seems, because they've added in like a voice actor for the person that you're playing, which is something they've never done before, as far as I remember.
Oh yeah, actually, I kind of didn't.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that's going to. Is it the same? Is it one guy that you're playing? Can you actually edit your character? I'm assuming you can because you could in all the other games, but
yeah.
I don't know. It's just
a lot of games I've usually just done one set, a male voice and a female voice. And just be done with it.
Well, one of the other things I noticed was the VAT system in it. When you stop time in all the other Fallout games. Yeah. Which so you can then aim at a body part. I think instead of stopping time, they're actually slowing it down now. It's almost like bullet time.
Right.
And that seems quite interesting because it means that you can't just go into VATS mode now and then just stop and think about what you're doing. You've got to keep sort of going because
the combat seemed a lot more fast paced and fluid. I mean,
that's right.
The bit of combat they were showing you was very much not even really using the VAT system as much, more just kind of running around and
just shooting it.
I mean, it might just be that obviously the people making it are probably better at playing it than I have.
That possibly. I mean, you would hope so.
Yeah.
You'd hope they would be good at their own game.
I mean, it's not necessarily the case.
Oh, no.
It would be quite amusing that if every game designer was just terrible at computer games.
It's possible.
We should get in touch with some of them, get them on, and do a let's play.
Yeah, let's get them on, make them play their game.
Watch them fail.
Sit there, play that.
Watch them fail at Mario Party.
Right. So that was Fallout 4.
Yeah,
Fallout 4.
Well, that's
and that's out in November, I believe.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah. Is it November 17th, something like that? I think was the date that I saw. It's some like time in November anyway. Okay. Right, so the last thing that we're going to talk about video games is the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter. Which is something that I've been quite excited about and also losing my mind about for the past sort of 15 years or something like that.
Well, you can give us a lowdown on Shenmue.
Well, yeah, because you've never actually played any of the Shenmue games, have you?
I think I watched you play a little bit of Shenmue too.
That may have been the first one. Was that? I think it might have been the first one you saw me playing. But
you were doing something at the docks.
I have got a confession to make about that.
Down the docks.
Yeah. That's Shenmue 2. That's Shenmue 2.
Salty fishermen.
So yeah, there's some very salty fishermen in Shenmue 2.
Salty Japanese fishermen.
I think they're Chinese. Hong Kong.
You're in Hong Kong.
Aye. The first Shenmue set in Japan, but I've got a confession about that, and that's that I've never actually finished Shenmue.
Oh, right. That's another one to add.
Another one to add to the list of games that I never finished. And in fact, I'd never really got that far through it either.
Right.
But for some reason, back in the day, like when I was younger, because we're talking about, I was probably about 16 or something, when I got a Dreamcast, I got Shenmue 2 for it instead of the first Shenmue, and I think the reason for that was I saw my brother's friend playing Shenmue 2 and I thought, this looks amazing, I'm going to get this, not really thinking about what the first Shenmue might have been, because back then I was young and carefree. not quite bothered about the completionist thing.
Yeah. It's a large enough saga in itself.
Yes, that's it. Well, but I absolutely loved it. I mean, Shenmue was it was one of the sort of first properly sort of open world games, I suppose, and at the time it was like the most expensive video game ever produced. And then I think when Shenmue 2 came out, that then became the most expensive video game ever produced. But the problem was that they did not sell as well as they should have, and so the trilogy was cancelled after the second one. They basically, I think it was Sega, basically said, we're not making the third one, we're not making money out of this.
Was there not a big part of this all the fact that it was on the Dreamcast?
I think being on the Dreamcast, but I mean the Dreamcast, I mean if you look at Shenmue and consider when it came out, whenever that was, possibly the very late 90s, early 2000s, probably somewhere around that time. I think maybe now very early 2000s. Yeah. The graphics and stuff on it are pretty incredible for a Dreamcast game. Like they've really pushed it out there.
Well, the Dreamcast was the sort of generation of like Nintendo 64 sort of thing.
Yes,
around that sort of.
I think it was kind of around that time. I think that was like
the
first PlayStation.
More consoles than any of the other.
I think did Sega release another console after the Dreamcast?
Was there nothing that was like, there was the Saturn before it, and that was kind of like in between.
Aye.
And it also didn't do particularly
I think
well.
that was when Sega started to fail in the console market.
But the Dreamcast's an interesting one because it seems to be one that connoisseurs seem to enjoy. Yeah. And there's a lot of odd games on there that are just
there are some really good games on it. That's the thing, but it's just that I don't think it was very popular with developers. And yet, I don't know if there was any particular reason for that. I mean, we're talking about a long time ago. I can't really remember very much about it, but I mean, I think it was a pretty decent console, and especially when you play Shenmue on it. But at the moment, like, the only thing that I think of when I think of Dreamcast is the Shenmue games.
Right.
That's what I think of when I think of Dreamcast. It's just that's what I got my Dreamcast for, was basically to play the Shenmue games after seeing my mate's brother play it.
Well, you might want to plug. Do you still have the Shenmue games and your Dreamcast?
I do, and they still work.
Yeah.
And I'm hopefully, because the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter is just finished, which I'll talk about in a second, but in celebration of that, I think I might set up some sort of streaming of Shenmue and Shenmue 2. I don't know how that's going to work, because Dreamcast, I don't think there is a way that we can just like stream that straight from the Dreamcast. There's probably going to have to be a camera pointing at my television screen, which will be terrible, but I think it could be done.
I might just mention at this point that we recorded a version of this episode before, and at this point, as per our earlier awful story, we went off on a bit of a tangent about cables.
We did, and
which we'll not do this
time. We started getting into very technical things that neither of us really understood, and yet we kept talking about it. But thankfully, that episode didn't work.
Yeah.
And not because of what we were saying, but it was because of technical things.
Yeah.
But this is it. We don't understand technical things, and yet we talk about them.
And some of what we were saying.
And some of what we were saying was just complete bullshit. But so the Shenmue games, they were sort of properly open world, and it was set in this sort of, it was like this what happened to my dad story, this classic story sort of thing. It's set in the 80s, the late 80s.
Right.
And the first one's set in Japan, the second one's set in Hong Kong. And one of the places in Hong Kong is called Aberdeen, which is really hilarious when you're like walking about playing it in Japanese and they're saying Aberdeen wa. But it's like, it was properly open world. You can go around, you could interact with all the people, you could go into all the shops, you could like, they had these little capsule toy like machine things, so you could like go, you had to get a job and stuff, you had to work, and then you could spend all your money instantly in the capsule toy machines, just collecting all these little figurines of Sonic and stuff like that, and the guys from Virtua Fighter.
So you could really do something really productive with your time.
Oh yeah, you really did. You could, if you wanted to waste your life in Shenmue, you could waste your life. But I've been like, when I completed Shenmue 2, and then for some reason then started playing Shenmue, I got kind of like sick as a parrot, and I was sick as a parrot that Shenmue 3 was not going to get made. And then for years and years and years, we've been trying to get Shenmue 3 made. All this sort of fan base have been trying to get it made because people want to know what happens in this story. And finally, it went up on Kickstarter. The guy that made it, I think he's called Yu Suzuki, possibly. I may be thinking of somebody else, but...
Yu Suzuki?
You're Suzuki. You're a Suzuki.
Yu Suzuki.
He's finally put Shenmue 3 up on Kickstarter. He got some deal sorted out with Sony, so it's coming out on the PS4. It's coming out on the PC. I've put in for the PS4 version because for me, Shenmue is a console game. As much as I love my PC gaming, I just think that Shenmue would feel a bit wrong on the PC for me.
Yeah.
So... I don't know exactly when the game's getting made. The Kickstarter just finished, I think, yesterday as we record this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's now going to go, obviously, into full development now. And they hit their goal for their Kickstarter within 24 to 48 hours, I think it was. And they got millions and millions of dollars to make this game, so they've got more than enough money to go forward with. So we're probably looking at, a couple of years before we even see this game.
Yeah.
But it's a game that I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah. Well,
so in 2 years' time, I'll let you know how it is.
Brilliant. Well, I think we'll hopefully all be following your exploits in the game will actually work out what this game's all about, because I'm still slightly confused, to be honest.
It's fairly simple. You just sort of walk around interacting with people, and then every so often the guy that you're playing goes, "I know."
I know.
That's it. That's Shenmue.
So you're simultaneously looking for your dad.
Yeah, but also wondering about Confused.
It's the classic story.
Yeah, and you can get in arm wrestling matches with people. So, I mean, what is there not to like about this game? You can go.
Tell me where my father is.
You press X to win. So, but you can also, I mean, like we were talking about ruining your life in it, or you want to waste your life, you can go and gamble all your money in the gambling dens as well, and lose horrifically. Or possibly win, and then go and spend thousands and thousands of Hong Kong dollars in capsule toy machines. I mean, you've got to love it.
Yeah. Hong Kong is your oyster.
Hong Kong is your oyster in Shenmue 2.
I'm going to enjoy, hopefully, revisiting that in Shenmue 3, if that's where they're planning to locate it.
I think it's going to be set in China, from what I know. He's at the end of Shenmue 2, he'd gone off to some small village somewhere. I don't know if it was in mainland China, but I can't remember. It's been a while since I played it.
Okay.
But yeah, he's going to be wandering about there. I don't know exactly where he's going to go from there. He'll probably end up somewhere different, but it should be interesting.
Mongolia?
Possibly.
I'd like to see that in a...
You'd like to see Mongolia in a video game?
Yeah. I'd like to see a sort of sandbox...
Mongolia game.
Yeah.
Just a sandbox Mongolia game.
Sandbox Mongolia. Find a yak. And then, take it from there.
Right. So I think that's pretty much everything we've got for video games. So we'll take a bit of a break here, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the board games we've been playing.
Yes.
And see you soon.
And we're back with Board Game Roundup. Board Game Roundup. And, yeah, so first off, we'll talk about Robinson Crusoe.
Yes, we will.
Just recently. On Sunday night, we had a 2-player game of that.
We did.
With,
That's your first time playing it, wasn't it?
First time, yeah. It was pretty brutal.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah.
We did win. We should point out we did win. But it's a difficult game, but it's a really interesting game.
It did not treat me like a gentleman.
So the basic idea of Robinson Crusoe, as you can probably guess from the title, it's about being marooned on an island, and it's not really got much to do with the actual Robinson Crusoe story. But there are different scenarios in it. We played the first scenario, which involves you're marooned on an island, and you've got to build a beacon. So you've got to collect a load of wood and build a big beacon and set it on fire. But the game, it's kind of like a sort of survival game, like video game survival games. It's a real struggle sort of thing to get things together.
Resources are scarce. You're always under threat from something.
Yeah,
either animal attack, the weather,
food, lack of
food. Yeah, just lack of morale.
Yeah,
can be pretty damaging. You can, once your morale starts getting quite low, you can actually start taking damage from that.
Yeah,
which sort of implies some pretty grim stuff.
Yeah, people just generally going insane.
Yeah. So it's a pretty thematically strong game.
It is. So the basic mechanics of the game are that you start on one tile on an island, and you can explore that island further. So you flip over some more tiles, but everybody has 2 player pieces, 2 little pawns, and you can do different actions with those pawns. So you can explore, you can gather resources, you can build things like shovels or like bricks or pots and medicine and that kind of thing.
Survival tools.
That's right.
You can use,
and you can also hunt animals, or you can. What's the other action that I'm forgetting completely here?
Foraging,
gathering resources.
Yeah.
And what you do is, if you want to do one of those actions, you can use 1 or 2 pawns to do that. And if you put 2 pawns onto something, so if you put 2 pawns on the same spot on the island to explore it, then it automatically succeeds and you just flip over a new tile. If you only put 1 pawn on it, then you have to roll some dice. And these dice can be quite brutal because those dice determine whether you succeed or not.
Yeah.
But you can also, it's 3 dice. One of them tells you if you succeed or not. Another one can cause you damage. You take wounds from your little adventure that you've had, and another one can determine whether you have to turn over an event card. So there's 3 different decks of event cards depending on what you're actually doing. And if these event cards they're really interesting. They've got 2 parts to them. So you've got a top half and a bottom half. And the top half will tell you to do something, and it'll have a little bit of flavour text. So for example, there could be, you heard something in the bushes, and then it tells you to shuffle that card into the event deck. And this event deck, you turn a card over at the start of every turn. So if that card comes back out, you then ignore the top half and read the bottom half of it. So the top half said you heard something in the bushes, shuffle the card into the event deck. When that card comes back out, it'll say the thing you heard has attacked you. And then it could end up destroying your camp, or, you'd have to take some wounds, or you've got to fight some some beast or something like that. There are no monsters in the game, but there are animals that can really mess you up.
Yeah, the animals are the real monsters in this game.
That's true, as is morale.
Yeah.
Morale is a monster.
Or is it the humans?
Well, it's a philosophical question, Euan.
It doesn't really feel like it's the humans when you're playing this game. You're just trying to get by.
That's a biased opinion, though.
Yeah.
These animals will live there all their lives, and you're just coming in and messing the place
I'm
up.
hoping for a companion game where you play as animals on this island, and maybe Friday.
Oh, yeah.
You've got... In the 2-player game, we took... there was the option for a couple of extra support characters.
I think in a 2-player game, you're pretty much told to take Friday.
Yeah.
So this is supposed to be Man Friday, who's basically just an extra pawn who can do his own thing, but he doesn't have very many wounds. So you get different characters that you can play as. So you can be like the carpenter or the cook or the explorer or the soldier, and they all have different abilities, but they also have wounds. And if any character dies, then you lose the game. And Friday has 3 wounds. I don't think you lose the game if he dies, but that's not a lot of wounds considering most other people have 10, 11, 12, something like that. But you also have the option of taking Dog, and everybody loves Dog. Dog is surprisingly a dog who you can use to hunt beasts or explore the island. That's the only 2 things that he can help you with. But
presumably he was on this boat when you...
Presumably. Or you find him on the island, possibly. He's maybe just a lost dog.
Tamed dog.
Yep, he swam out to this island.
Living as an outcast.
What's going on here? But, it's a really difficult game, but at the same time it's really interesting, and you find that you get into a bit of a flow. So the first few turns of the game are kind of hard because you don't have anything, and you might have to set up a camp somewhere, but at the start of the game your camp basically consists of an area of the island that you're living on and nothing else. But you can upgrade it later on in the game if you get some resources. You can use some wood to build proper shelter or some palisades or a roof. And if you don't have a camp and you sleep out in the open, you just take some wounds for it because you're sleeping rough.
Once the weather dice start kicking in, in the scenario we were doing, you had 3 turns before.
Six turns.
6 turns. There was something else you had to start rolling after. Well, it might have been on the 4th. On the 4th round. It was
after. I think 6 turns. 6 turns of nothing really. And then at the end of the 7th, 8th, and 9th turn, you have to roll the weather die, and that tells you whether it's raining or not. And if it rains and you don't have a roof on your on your camp, then you're in trouble. And then after the 9th round, you have to start rolling an extra weather die, which can mean snow, which is even worse than rain, and then also a red die, which tells you some beasts have come to attack your camp in the night, and that can just completely destroy the place. So you really want to start getting, by the 10th round, you really want to have and be in a position to win the game by that point. Because trying to survive those last 3 rounds, Jesus.
Oh, you can kind of shore up your camp to some extent, but
you can.
It's not going to keep you...
But that's difficult, because shoring up your camp uses up resources that you could be using to do something else. For example, building that beacon to complete the game. But Robinson Crusoe, it definitely gets... I rate it quite highly. It's one of my favourite cooperative games. It's a bit more complicated than quite a lot of other cooperative games. But
Yeah, definitely. I found it was a lot more sort of nuanced than something like.
but it's very thematic,
Yeah,
and it's very different from anything else that I've played, I think.
yeah. I found myself kind of playing through the role of the cook.
That's
I
right.
was in this game, kind of like, you know, starting off basically on this desert island, and you're having to kind of move inland, find more resources. You're not really fulfilling your sort of role to begin with, but then once you kind of get more established and you move your camp to maybe a better location, you start kind of fulfilling your roles. I'd like to see it actually with the 4 players and kind of see everybody.
Yeah.
Because I think there was definitely something lacking in that. You know, there's certain things that we had to do that maybe our characters weren't as well suited to doing.
That's right.
I don't know, you were saying it does scale up.
It does scale up. It
difficult.
becomes more difficult to upgrade your camp. You need more resources to upgrade your camp if you've got more people, which kind of makes thematic sense. You've got to make a bigger camp. But it also, if you play the 4-player game, it's much harder to get morale. So
That's
like you say, it does scale.
well, people
scales
just
up.
annoy the piss out of each other, don't they?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really annoyed just sitting here with you right now.
Yeah. Imagine if we were on a tropical island.
Oh, jeez, I don't want to think about that.
I'd probably club you with a parrot.
A parrot?
Live or dead.
I'll be honest, I would not expect that. So you've got the surprise attack on me there.
I just imagine a parrot sort of going stiff and making quite a connection.
It's got a beak on it as well. I mean, that's pretty brutal.
Sort of like an axe.
You're an evil man. Right. Well, next up, let's talk about a game that we've both played extensively, which is Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Yeah.
Another cooperative game.
A much shorter, probably more streamlined game than Robinson Crusoe. It's all card based. The theme is basically your superheroes. It's all very comic themed. All of the cards. Your sort of hero cards have these kind of comic cover. In fact, quite a cool thing about them is on your card for each character. There's where you normally have like the issue number.
That's right.
The front cover of a comic is your health.
Yeah.
That number is your health, your HP.
But these each superhero comes with its own deck of cards, and that deck of cards never changes. It's always the same deck of cards for that superhero. So there's lots of decks of cards in this game, and but these cards have all got sort of like, they can be equipment or they can be one-shot cards, which you just play and do what it says and discard it, or sort of other things like that. Some of the superheroes are slightly different. They might get different things. Like, you've got this weird bard-like character who has musical instruments that you can equip and stuff like that, and you can play them in different ways. So you can make a melody, or you can play a rhythm or something like that. So the superheroes all play kind of differently, which is really good. But you also, the location cards and the villain cards are what kind of make the game different every time.
There's a lot of chopping and changing between the sort of the different combinations you can have with the environment decks and the villain decks.
That's right.
Some of them kind of contradict each other. I think we had one where we were fighting it was kind of like a forest being.
Oh yeah,
It was like a sort of like it used the plants of the forest to kind of attack you and everything.
That's right.
And we were fighting it on Mars. Or maybe the moon.
Yeah,
somewhere in space.
Possibly the moon base. Wagner Mars base or something like that.
Where I think an attacking forest would raise a lot of questions.
But still, just pretty fun. I mean, it's not, you're not supposed to take it too seriously, but it's a game where it's kind of strange, because the first few turns of the game you can get really annihilated in the first few turns of the game, while you're still trying to set up your equipment, trying to get yourself sorted out, get a decent hand of cards together. And I tend to find that you lose most of your health on those first few turns of the game, and then you're just kind of hanging on by the skin of your teeth, which comes through in the theme, really, because that's the superhero thing, isn't it?
You're like attacked by some.
That's right.
Some villain. I mean, in terms of the how it's played. I mean, the round system. You actually start each game with the villain.
The villain goes first.
Having the first turn. And then the environment, I think.
No, the villain goes first, and then all the superheroes take a turn.
Right, yeah. And
then the environment takes a turn.
Yeah.
But the environment cards are interesting because those are kind of neutral. So they can do things, they can do a variety of things depending on what they are. Yeah. But some of them, like the dinosaur world location, like you can get a T-Rex out which will just start smashing everything, including the villains.
Yeah.
But it can also really mess you up as well. So it's like, you kind of have to look at these location cards and think, is it worth actually getting rid of this location card? Because it might just destroy the villain for us.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a few times we based certain decisions on, it's like, should we heal ourselves? Well, no, because this thing's going to attack whoever's got that, and it happens to be the villain has the highest hit points at the time.
So we were just like, just leave it, because if one of us heals ourselves, we become the people with the highest health, and it'll hit us. So, it's quite interesting. I really actually like that location thing. It really adds something to it.
Well, they've got the kind of, like, it's the superhero thing that people always do. They put yourself, what if so-and-so fought so-and-so on the moon, and, it's basically that. It's like endless variations.
All these sort of nerd discussions on forums that people don't care about. Just like Batman versus Superman. If Batman had preparation time, though, it's like, shut up with your preparation time.
What if the Green Lantern fought Aquaman in Wales?
That's exactly it. That's exactly what this game feels like. There should be a Wales location deck.
Yeah, well, I think you could probably add that. I mean, who makes Sentinels of the Multiverse?
That's a good question. I can't actually remember. We probably should have checked this stuff out before we start podcasting about it.
We will. Any stuff we want to hype, we will try and get up on the Facebook page, which we have got set up now.
But there's nothing on it.
It's bare bones. It's the old white flag and a powder blue background.
Sexy.
Yeah. Neutral.
Right, well, so Sentinels of the Multiverse, good game.
Excellent game. I give it
how many dead rats this time?
Five rusty capes.
5 rusty capes.
Out of 5 rusty capes.
By the way, if you're wondering what that noise is in the background, that's Euan's insane dog. It's just grumbling away.
Yeah. He's not quite sick, just
weird.
Being an arsehole, basically. Doesn't really understand what's going on around you. We're trying to record a podcast.
Right, so let's move on then. So that was Sentinels in the Multiverse. I'm going to talk about a game which you haven't played.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to tell you about it.
Okay.
It's called Defenders of the Realm. So yet again, another cooperative game. We've not played many competitive games recently. Defenders of the Realm is a sort of fantasy game which is very, very similar to Pandemic, but with a bit more in it. And especially if you like the fantasy theme, it's good. And it's full of little plastic minis and stuff, and they're all pretty cool. But the basic idea of this game is that you start off with some heroes. So I think the team we had was a dwarf, a rogue, and a paladin. We played it with 3 people. And you start off in this city in the middle of the board. And what happens is that there are 4 villains, 4 big bosses of different colours, and they have minions of the same colour. And they start off in sort of at the edges of the board, and they start moving slowly towards the middle of the board. And if any of these big villains gets to the city, then you lose the game instantly. And also, if any 5 minions get to the city, then you lose the game instantly as well. And they're also going about spreading taint, so the maximum amount of minions that can be on a space on the board is 3. If you ever have to put any more minions on that space, then they taint the land and spread out. And it's like that the system in Pandemic, where it's like the epidemic happens and the disease just spreads out from the city, and then everything goes wrong. But so I think it's a bit more forgiving than Pandemic, because Pandemic had this whole thing with you always shuffle the cards that just came out and put them back on top of the deck. That doesn't happen in this game, thankfully.
I suppose it's trying to simulate
a different thing, yeah. But I mean, I think it's much more sort of. I feel like more involved in Defenders of the Realm. I feel like I'm actually doing something in Defenders of the Realm. But you get these different characters who have different abilities, and you get quests that you can do. So like I was the rogue, so the rogue could you could go to inns in this game and get some rumours, which involve picking up cards, and the rogue could pick up more cards basically. but the rogue could stealth, so the rogue could finish her turn on a space that had minions in it, and the minions wouldn't attack her. Right. So that was pretty useful. So they all have these different abilities that they can use, and the way that you actually defeat the bosses is that you have to collect cards of the same colour. So you have these cards which have sort of colours on them, and you get the 4 different boss colours, which is like black, blue, red and green.
Right.
And if you collect enough of a set of cards, you can team up with other people and go and fight a boss. And what happens is you roll a number of dice depending on how many cards you have. Okay. But these bosses have different abilities themselves. So like the orc boss, the green boss, he could like, for every 1 that you rolled, got rid of one of your other dice, which was pretty brutal. Right. And considering he's got 5 or 6 hit points, you need to get sort of 5 or 6 successes, and on the orc boss it's 3 pluses. But if you roll a whole bunch of 3 pluses but also roll 5 ones, then you're getting rid of 5 of those 3 pluses as well, and that can be pretty brutal. But you get other things like the undead guy, you can't re-roll against him. The dragon guy, he goes back to full health at the end of the fight if you haven't killed him, and he's much harder to hit. You need 5 pluses to kill him, so he's quite a difficult boss. Although he was the first one we killed, but it's a really good game, like cooperative. It doesn't take as long as it looks like it does when you get these games that are full of minis that have got these little miniature figures that generally alarm bells ring that this game's going to take forever. But it doesn't. It's actually plastic. Yeah, little plastic figurines, yeah. And so you've got 1 for each of the heroes, and then you've got 1 for the bosses. All the minions look identical, they're just different colours. But Defenders of the Realm, one that I definitely think you should play. I think you'd enjoy it. You like Pandemic.
Yeah, we'll and it sounds like it does have a couple of mechanics in common with Pandemic.
Oh, there's a lot of mechanics in common.
But they do seem to go in a different direction.
It does.
How they kind of... obviously collecting the cards, that's quite similar. But then there's more to it than that.
There is that. Fight, you've got to go and fight things.
Yeah. Keeping
the theme going.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of episode 0 of the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast.
Love that name.
I love that name. Love that name.
And I'm really hoping there's a lot of board game geeks out there that enjoy that name.
I think they'll appreciate it.
I think it was a point that needed to be made.
Well, like I was talking about the other day, my favourite token in a game is definitely the North token in Descent. It's the most useless token I've ever seen, and it's become a bit of a joke amongst us when we're playing games now. It's like, where's the North token?
Well, these are the kind of hopefully these are kind of features you might see popping up in later episodes. I'd like to do a comparison of pointless tokens from various games.
I don't know do you really need a comparison?
Well, I think we should
just a criticism.
Yeah. We could just line them up and go, that's shite. What's the point of that? Who uses this?
That's not a comparison.
Throw that away.
So our plans for the future. I mean, this is, like I say, this is episode 0. So we've called it that because this is us basically trying to find our feet and see how we get on with the recording and stuff like that.
Yeah,
we think it's gone pretty well.
We're working a kind of improv style at the moment.
Yeah, that's it.
We're developing it as we go.
Yeah, we've got a very loose script here that we've been looking at, and we think that possibly in the future what we might like to do is maybe record ourselves playing some games, and obviously not just play the whole thing, but just cut in some sort of some of the chat and banter that happens during some of the games.
Hopefully we'll bring you some of the choice moments from... There's a few that I would like personally to get on that have always generated some memorable moments. Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Would be a good one. And obviously Pathfinder, something we play, and that's something that hopefully we'll be getting into in future episodes. I would like to talk a bit about Pathfinder, just the game in general, and our own scenario.
I mean, we should point out that we've never played an RPG before.
Yeah, and it's something that we've enjoyed. I think. Coming to it from having never really experienced it, I've always been a little bit wary of. I've had people try to sort of get me involved in Dungeons and Dragons game before, and I've sort of generally politely rebuffed them.
Yeah, and I kind of forced you to do some Pathfinder. I just decided one day to buy the rule book, and then started making some things. So I'm the games master, if you will, and it's been interesting. Yeah, especially the warrior, the fighter in the group, whose main sort of goal in life seems to be to destroy every door that he sees.
We'll definitely get on to that. There's a host of colourful characters to introduce to you from our game of Pathfinder.
Then we could possibly maybe get some of these guys on to talk about it.
Oh yeah, I'd like to
get some of their perspective on
from
how stupid it is. But that kind of wraps it up. So I've been Chris.
And I was Euan.
Yes, you were. And this has been the large and will be the large and unnecessary First Player Token podcast. Thank you. Goodbye.
Cheers.